Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we'll start off with milk and milk products. So if you haven't watched my previous video, you may watch it before coming to this video. So I'll be explaining this video from where we left in the last video. So this was the point we talked in the last video about flavor components and all of the things that are needed for it, and some of the important components that are present in the milk, and the protein content, the two different types of protein, the whey and casein, and how they can be separated. I showed you a picture as well. So moving on from there on, so we'll talk about processing today. So what is processing? So processing is a way in which milk can be preserved so that to extend its shelf life. So processing can be taken place in a various number of ways. So we'll talk about some of its ways. So number one way, which is all we know, is pasteurization. So we have heard about the term pasteurization in our junior classes, and this is again we have here. So milk not only is a remarkable fine food for humans, but also is a medium in which many microorganisms can thrive. As soon as milk is expressed from a cow's udder, contamination can be a problem. So everywhere there is a contamination thing that can happen after the milk has been extracted. So pasteurization is one technique that is done to preserve the milk to prevent the growth of microorganisms. So what is pasteurization? So pasteurization is nothing but it's a heat treatment of milk adequate to kill microorganisms that can cause illness in people. Also, pasteurization can be taken place in a number of methods. So there are different types of pasteurization. So number one method is hold method. So hold method is a sort of a pasteurization method in which milk is heated to 63 degrees Celsius and held there for 30 minutes before it is cooled down to 7 degrees. So milk is heated at 63 degrees for 30 minutes and then it is cooled down to 7 degrees. So this is one method for pasteurization. So next we have HTST method, which is high temperature short time pasteurization method. So in which the milk is heated to 72 degrees Celsius and held there at least 15 seconds before it is cooled down to 10 degrees. So it's a very short time. So the milk is heated to 72 degrees and held for 15 seconds only, and then it is cooled down to 10 degrees. So this is what we know as the high temperature short time pasteurization. So coming to the third type of pasteurization, which is UHT pasteurization, which is the extreme pasteurization or the ultra high temperature pasteurization. So in this, what happens is milk is heated at 138 degrees Celsius for just 2 seconds, or for at least 2 seconds, that kills all microorganisms and makes possible the storage of milk in a closed sterile container at room temperature. So the time decreases but the temperature increases as we move to the different types of pasteurization. So we talked about three types of pasteurization to increase the shelf life and prevent the contamination and the growth of microorganisms. So moving on to this another type of processing method, which is homogenization. So homogenization is a method in which, so when milk is allowed to stand, the fat globules in milk tend to aggregate into clusters and rise to the top of the milk. So this is a method so in which the homogenization is something that milk is passed through a series of layers, so that we'll be talking about. So let's just talk about this term, which is creaming, which comes under homogenization, which will help you to understand the process better. So this is what in this thing happens is, so separation of fat from the aqueous portion of milk that takes place when fat globules clusters into large aggregates and rise to the surface of the milk. So homogenization occurs when we heat the milk, and then and after that some time when we cool it to about 7 degrees or 10 degrees and leave it for some time, we generally observe that there is a layer of fat that gets accumulated on the top of the milk. All right, so that is what we know as the creaming or homogenization. So the flat globules that are present in the milk, so the fat content or the carbohydrate content that is present in the milk tends to aggregate when the milk is heated and cooled and it is left over for some time. Then the flat globules aggregate into clusters and rise to the top of the milk to form a creamy layer on the top, so which we know as creaming. So talking more about homogenization, so what it is all about. So what is the technical or the mechanics of it? So it's a mechanical process in which milk is forced through tiny apertures under a pressure of 2000 to 2500 psi, which breaks up the fat globules, which are around 3 to 10 microns, into smaller units, and that they do not separate from the milk. So this happens. So this pressure or this forcing of milk through tiny apertures happens only when the milk is heated. So when we heat the milk and cool it, so the milk is forcefully told to pass through some tiny apertures so that the flat molecule that is present in the milk breaks down, and thus when it is cooled it then again accumulates and goes to the top because of its less density, and that is why we see a certain slimy layer on the top surface of the milk when it is cooled. So this is what homogenization is. So coming to the another processing method, that is evaporation. So evaporation is a method in which the large percentage of water in milk contributes greatly to the bulk of milk that is to be stored, and consequently various canned milks are produced by evaporation of enough of the water to about double the concentration of protein and fat. So evaporation is a simple method in which the water content in the milk is reduced so that it is generally available in canned milk. So the evaporated water what the evaporation of water mainly takes place, and the milk content or the fat content increases, and the protein and the fat content have generally more content than the water. So this is what evaporation is. So I'll be showing you certain pictures of evaporated milk or the canned milk that is available in the market, which contains very less amount of water and more of proteins and fats. So this is one more method for processing. So evaporated milk. So talking about some of the evaporated milk. So it's a sterilized canned milk that has been concentrated to about half its original volume by evaporation under a partial vacuum. So it's a sterilized canned milk that has been concentrated to about half its original volume by evaporation under partial pressure or vacuum. So I'm giving you some pictures as you can see here. So here are some of this is one evaporated milk, this is the sweetened condensed milk, and this is the fat-free sweetened condensed milk. So the sweetened condensed milk is high in sugar, so as the name suggests, and extra sugar is added onto the milk to make it more sweeter. And this fat-free sweetened condensed milk also contains sugar but has no fat, and but has high protein content and no fat. And evaporated milk has no sweet, or the sweet content is zero in this, and all of the water content in the milk is evaporated, and it has high content of fats and proteins. So these are three types of milk that are generally available in every market. So moving on with, so coming about some of the evaporation, some of the different types of milk that we just went through. So coming to the sweetened condensed milk. So the sweetened condensed milk, which has a lot of extra sugar content. So these are canned milk to which sugar is added, which contains more than 54% carbohydrates because of milk sugar and added sugar, and evaporation of about half the water, and heat treatment to kill harmful microorganisms precede the canning process. So this is a process that is very much similar to pasteurization, when the milk is heated and extra sugar is added onto this to make it sweet, and the water content of the milk is evaporated, and then it is processed. So this is sweetened condensed milk. So coming to the next part of processing, which is drying. So milk is dried to produce a food that can be stored for an extended period of time without refrigeration, or to reduce the problems of transporting fluid milks, which is subjected both to spoilage and to high shipping cost because of large amount of water in them. So you must be familiar with dry milk powders that are available. So milk powders are generally available, that generally reduces the shipping cost because of because milk generally contains water. So half of the milk contains water, so the shipping cost gets highly reduced, and large amount of milk can be transported from one point to another. And this is a good method to prevent the contamination as well and the growth of microbes if the milk is dried and sold in the powder form. So this is one more idea of processing milk, which is drying. So there are certain types of drying milks. As you can see, this is one insanitized dried milk. So milk that has been dried, moistened until sticky, and then re-dried into spongy aggregates of solids and then rehydrate readily without lumping. So this is one of the property of milk powder. So they rehydrate readily without lumping. So when we take some milk powder and add water to that, so it then gets easily mixed with the water or any fluid that we add without producing lumps. All right, so it does not produce lumps and easily rehydrates in whatever fluid we pour into. So one of the examples of dried milk product is glassy lactose. So it's an amorphous milk sugar. So and another certain companies generally produce milk powders. So glassy lactose is one of the milk sugar that is present in the milk powder. So glassy lactose is the amorphous non-crystalline form of milk sugar. So this is one more form. So as we just studied in the previous video, so milk only contains lactose as a disaccharide and as a carbohydrate. And certain milk also contain alactose, which is a better form of lactose and which dissolves better. Also in dry milk or milk powders, we have glassy lactose as the sugar. So moving on to the another process that we have here is the fermentation process. So fermentation process is the process that most of you might be familiar with this. So various organisms are used commercially to ferment lactose in milk and milk products. So the goal is the production of lactic acid by one or more types of microorganisms. So as we know, the milk contains Lactobacillus cerevisiae, which is one of the most common microorganism present in the milk, used in the fermentation process for conversion of many other products. So we use yeast and all of the stuff for conversion of yeast to alcohol and beer production. So all of the stuff. So some of the fermentation processes include frequently Streptococcus lactis initiates the fermentation process with lactobacillus of various types, which can be Lactobacillus casei, bulgarius, or lactis, containing the fermentation as the pH drops to the effective ranges. So this is a general idea of a fermentation process, how it carries out. So talking about more about the fermentation process that we have here is the thickening associated with fermented products as the result of the association of casein, micelles, often accompanied by beta-lactoglobulin. So beta-lactoglobulin is present mainly in whey protein. So whey is whey, as we know, is the second type of protein that is present in the milk. So the protein that is the name of the protein that is present in whey is lactoglobulin, beta-lactoglobulin. So that is used in the fermentation process for the association of casein micelles, which is accompanied by this protein. Unfortunately, undesirable microorganisms can grow under essentially the same conditions and are needed to achieve controlled desirable fermentation. So fermentation is definitely something a very costly process and needs absolute sterilization, and at any stage if we find any sort of contamination, the entire process goes into vain. So this is a certain very much precautious step or precautious processing step that gets carried out. So let's just keep this video till here. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a big thumbs up. And I'll be back with another video very soon, starting from here on where I left. And I'll be discussing the other parts of milk and their products. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.